Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So on Thursdays, we usually take a look at what is going on in the freight market, in the spot market, what is happening week after week. So let's take a look at what's going on with volumes, rejections, diesel prices, capacity, and then we'll dive into the details, the data for dry vans, reefers, and flatbeds to see what Blitz Week has done to spot rates. And then we will take a look at what is happening with load to truck ratios right now for those three equipment types. Ready? Let's go. As always, the charts are going to be attached right here. So let's get into it. So first we have the general volume, which is all volume. It's not just the spot market. So last week compared to this week, and this is data from yesterday, volume has decreased by 0.57% in general. Then we have rejections. And again, the latest data is from yesterday, Wednesday. Rejection levels are continuing to go up, and they went up by 14.5% week over week, and currently, or as of yesterday, are 6.24%. We'll talk about what rejection levels are at today later on. Spot volume, this is for last week's data, it increased by 34.39% week over week. Now, spot rates, also for the week ending on Blitz Week, actually increased by only 1 cent per mile from 2.34 per mile to 2.35. And partially this is because flatbeds saw a decrease in spot rates. We will get into that later. So let's take a look at what's going on with diesel prices in terms of the price at the pump. This is data that I get from AAA. And as you can see, it pretty much stays the same in the sense of the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest. It is the most expensive place to refuel. It's over $4 per gallon, the Northeast as well. And the cheapest are Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Mississippi. But if we take away the IFTA and look at the raw prices, then we see that actually Illinois is the cheapest, between $2.70 to $2.80 per gallon. And the most expensive is Washington at $4.10 per gallon. But in general, again, it's the West Coast and the Northeast that are the most expensive when it comes to diesel prices. Now, in general, diesel has gone up. As you can see, week over week, diesel has gone up by a little bit over 1 cent per gallon on a national average. Month over month, there is no change at all. And year over year, diesel prices are down about 35 cents per gallon. All right, let's take a look at what is happening with that capacity. So capacity-wise, there is a change. So as you can see, the white line, again, I tried to get it as close to zero as possible, which means that there is an equal amount of people coming in versus going out. So the net change is zero. For the first time since around February 20 something, we are seeing a net decrease in capacity. So week over week, we have actually lost about 60 MCs. More people left than came into the industry. All right, let's go into the spot market details for the three main equipment types, and we're going to start with those dry vans. So this is for Blitz Week. This is for last week to see what happened with the spot market when these inspections were going on. Dry vans actually on average saw a 12 cent per mile increase on the spot market week over week, but year over year, there was absolutely no change at all. Volumes week over week on the spot market for dry vans went up by 44.6%. And I think the reason for this is because the rejection levels went up as well. Year over year, volumes are 7% higher for dry vans. All right, let's take a look at some maps. First, we're going to look at the loads. What's going on with loads this week for dry vans? As you can see, most loads, over 3,000 of them on the spot market, are in Texas. And then the second best place for the volume of loads is Georgia. But in general, it is very clear that most loads are in the Midwest and the South, and California is kind of an outlier. Now, I'm not going to show the capacity map because what we see week after week, and this week is no different, capacity follows the load volume. But we will look at the load to truck ratios. So anything that is a shade of red is overcapacity. So that means that there are way less loads than there are trucks. It's just the darker it is, the bigger the overcapacity. So for example, the Northeast, and I forgot to color in Vermont, which is the dark red, but the Northeast and the Pacific Northwest are not good areas to be in at all. It's 0.2 to 0.4 loads per truck. Anything yellow is equilibrium. It's between 1 to 2 loads per truck. Be careful with those places because it depends on how many trucks are posted and how many times a broker posts the same load over and over again. But then there is the undercapacity or slight undercapacity, 2 to 3 loads per truck, and that's Georgia and South Carolina for dry vans this week. All right, let's take a look at reefers. Reefers saw a 27-cent per mile increase on average on the spot market week over week during Blitz Week. Year over year, rates are also 1% higher. Now, volumes, crazy jump in volumes, 50.5% week over week on the spot market. Again, I think it has to do with the fact that rejections jumped as well. And year over year, volumes are 12% higher than this time last year on the spot market. In terms of volume, so reefers just notoriously have less volume than dry vans and flatbeds, but they're also less reefer trucks than the other two equipment types. More volume comes out of California, Texas, and Georgia, between 1,000 and 1,500 loads. No volume comes out of the Pacific Northwest and the Northeast. And in general, if we take a look at the proximity, yeah, it's the Midwest. I would say it's the Midwest and some of the Southeast that has more volume. And the reason I mention it is because usually in high volume states, even if the load to truck ratio is not that great, if you're willing to wait, especially on a reefer that does tend to have those loads that load quite late, you're able to negotiate a better load rate for yourself. So let's take a look at the load to truck ratio. Most of the map is at equilibrium, 1 to 2 loads per truck in yellow. The Pacific Northwest is, it's not a great place to be, but worse than that is the Northeast, specifically New Hampshire and Maine. There are almost no loads for those trucks there. In terms of slight undercapacity, 2 to 3 loads per truck, for reefers this week, it's North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Mississippi. And Idaho has 3.28 loads per truck. But always compare the load to truck ratio to the volume map because, again, volumes are important. It gives you more chance to find something and negotiate a higher rate if you are able to just be patient with booking the load. All right, now we have flatbeds, and unfortunately, flatbeds on average during Blitz Week saw a 3-cent per mile decrease on the spot market. However, year over year, the rates are 2% higher. Volumes also jumped for flatbeds by almost 30% week over week, and volumes year over year are 28% higher. So in terms of the loads on the spot market, as you can see, anything that is dark blue, this is 5,000 to 9,299 loads in that area. Anything that's dark green is 4,000 to 5,000 loads. So there are a lot of loads for flatbeds, but there are also more flatbeds out there. In general, you can see that flatbed volume is in the south primarily Southeast, Midwest, and some of the East Coast, although California also has around 2,000 to 3,000 loads. I wouldn't recommend going to California though, but yeah, nevertheless, it is an outlier. In terms of load to truck ratios, as you can see, volume doesn't say much because the load to truck ratio shows that most of the map is a shade of red, which means over capacity. Excuse the beeping in the background. Anyway, in terms of equilibrium, Washington, California, Arizona, West Virginia, Maryland, Georgia, and South Carolina have between 1 and 2 loads per truck. Now, Oregon has slight undercapacity, 2 to 3 loads per truck, but the thing is the better rates will usually take you to an undesirable place in terms of, loads in that place. 4 to 5 loads per truck exists in Arkansas and Louisiana, pretty decent markets for flatbeds. These are the markets that went berserk during Blitz Week. And over 5 loads per truck is Mississippi and Alabama, with Mississippi having the highest load to truck ratio as usual. So yeah, guys, that's what I have for you. What will be very interesting to take a look at, because those spot market tables with the data, they show us what happens during Blitz Week. And we know that during Blitz Week, usually at least some of the capacity is parked, so the rates do end up going up. The question is what will happen in our next week's market update when we take a look at what's happening with the spot market this week. Did the rates go down? Did they stay the same? Or did they go up? The funny thing is, and I said I'll mention rejections as of today, rejection rates in the general market are continuing to climb. So we saw that as of yesterday, rejections were at 6.24%. As of today, they are at 6.41%, which means that more contract carriers are continuing to refuse to haul those loads. The only question is why? Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining and watching today. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning. See you in the next video.